All right, 1 minute for everyone, and we will start in just 1 minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and start opening up the room. I'll start inviting guests to introduce themselves. Oh yes, give me 1 second. All right, open up the room now. Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to everyone joining. We will be beginning in just 1 moment. Welcome to everyone joining. As you join us today, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We will be beginning in just 1 moment. All right, good morning and welcome everyone. Welcome to the launch of the USAID Global Lead Initiative Toolkit. My name is Cole Simcoe. I'm helping out today as our event manager, running through some of the features of the event today. So as I said, please take a moment and introduce yourself in the chat, your name, where you're joining from, your organization. Please do keep your cameras and mics muted during the presentation. As you all know, the event is being recorded and live streamed, and all event materials will be shared and posted post-event. Please do feel free to use the chat as we go through the presentation today. It is a perfect place to introduce yourself to some of your colleagues, get to know people, and ask any questions during the presentation. Closed captioning is available and is able to be accessed through the CC icon at the bottom of the screen. French and Spanish language translations are also available by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen. With that, I will go ahead and kick things off by handing them over to Mike Mccabe. Mike, welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Cole, and to everyone for joining us for today's session. Let me get my camera on there. So we are super excited to have you all here for the launch of our new Global Lead Toolkit. USAID is at a key moment in its approach to development. And as Administrator Power discussed in her speech in November, we need to go beyond just talking about international development and speak more about inclusive development. A key part of that inclusion at the local and national level is better engaging the 2.4 billion young people ages 10 to 29 as partners in advancing our common goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. There are lots of inspiring young leaders like Greta Thunberg and Malala, but many others are not known. And we know that while talent is universally distributed, Opportunities are not. And that's what Global Lead's about. It's to seek to support all young people's hopes and efforts by expanding USAID's partnership with them through increased programming on education, civic political engagement, and collective leadership development across any sector. We seek to engage 1 million young changemakers over the next 5 years across all sectors by developing a new partnership with youth that are part of what we call Generation 2030. Because without their support, USAID and others won't be able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And without engaging their voices and efforts, we leave out a massive unrealized potential to expand girls' access to education like we're doing in Malawi, or to revitalize democracy, rights, and governance like we're doing through our Unity program with youth in Ukraine, or to improve health systems and combat pandemics like we're doing across Africa with our Dreams ambassadors, or to combat violent extremism like we're doing with our Ma'an activity in Tunisia, and so many other examples where we depend on engaging youth in an authentic way to really make an impact. So Global Lead's unique framework builds on positive youth development, which is our approach to all youth programming at USAID and across the USG. But it expands out through collective action and into systemic change outcomes by helping missions, partners, and youth combine a series of different interventions in new ways that get us more effective youth engagement to realize those outcomes that we're working together towards. So what does this look like in practice? So in North Macedonia, one of our PACE Center missions on Global Lead, the youth ethnic integration activity built social cohesion and reduced drivers of extremism by combining a number of effective youth engagement interventions that you'll find in the Global Lead Toolkit, such as advocacy training, civic education, effective youth club models, youth centers, and project-based or service learning. In Guatemala, another PACE Center mission for our Global Lead efforts, the Puentes Project advanced youth employment and reduced drivers of violence through a combination of youth engagement interventions, including digital literacy training, youth networks, youth centers, and apprenticeship and scholarship programs. But how do we get there? What are these keys for Global Lead? There's 4, I think. One is we're focused on expanding intentional positive youth development program designs that focus on effective youth engagement interventions. And that's currently underway with so many of our missions around the world as they're designing new activities across sectors. 2, we're building new and strengthened partnerships with youth networks, not only YALI, which we're celebrating almost 10 years of our work through the Young African Leaders Initiative, but also with the European Democracy Youth Network, with our Youth Lead Network, with Generation Unlimited, and so many other new partners. We're also advancing practical evidence-based tools, such as this Global Lead Toolkit that we're proud to launch today. And I have to give really big thanks to the team that has helped put that together, Jesse Ellisberg, Hillary Taft, the team at YP2LE, and so many others. And finally, we seek to inspire for action through communication campaigns like the Watch Our Impact campaign that had young people from around the world submit their 3-minute stories of how they're producing change in their community. So this is an inflection point for USAID and for the global youth movement right now. In the coming months, Administrator Power and USAID will launch our new youth policy and implementation guidance, and it's based on our vast input and lessons learned from staff, partners, and young people. And our policy and our Global Lead Initiative is part of this new partnership between our missions and young people in every country. And the principles of our policy and its key objectives focus on expanding access to skills and opportunities, expanding youth-led collective action, and working to really maximize local system strengthening to put us on a path to real, inclusive, locally led development where youth in all their diversity share their visions and voices. So this isn't a single sector initiative, as you can see on this slide. It touches on all the SDGs. It touches on all the key priorities that we're facing globally right now. And so we're looking at where each of you can utilize this new toolkit as you design or you implement or you evaluate new activities that you want to do to really make sure young people are partners in development. Now I want to introduce a friend of mine, Nuru, who will give us a brief overview of Global Lead and the toolkit, and then Hillary will walk us through the sections of it. We'll also hear from some young leaders who are talking about their experience in leading change in partnership with us. And finally, we'll have some fun exercises to make sure that you really have the opportunity to get to know, practice, and see the incredible resources that are in this toolkit. We're really excited about it. But first, over to my friend Nuru, who is the creation of a team of young people from Tanzania. Nuru?
All right, welcome back to Youth Focus with Nuru, my new show for youth practitioners and young leaders. I am so excited for an incredible new opportunity for you all. Quite recently, I came across this wonderful initiative called Global Lead. It is a USAID-led collaborative initiative aiming to mobilize 1 million young leaders to guide their countries with progress on the key challenges of our time. Isn't that exciting? As many know, 2.4 billion young people are both impacted by and can impact issues facing their communities such as climate, health, education, employment, democratic participation, and peace. Here is where it gets even better. The Global Lead initiative seeks to expand opportunities for millions of young people to take action through education, civic or political engagement, youth leadership, and youth organizing across sectors. Today's young people have so much more to offer, and the Global Lead initiative supports programs in any context of any sector to build meaningful pathways for young people's involvement. The Global Lead initiative shows how we can build on the foundation of positive youth development to create more opportunities for young people to participate and lead in civic spaces, take collective action, and change systems. This toolkit provides guidance and practical tools not only to USAID and its partners, but also to young people so that they may create more and better opportunities and activities to strengthen youth engagement. You can click on this link to access the toolkit and understand its importance for programs across sectors. USAID is committed to creating a new partnership and opportunities for and with young people to increase their collective participation and leadership in advancing community development and sustainable development goals. The Global Lead Toolkit provides youth and youth-focused implementers illustrative interventions, indicators for measurement, and creative examples of program activities for setting up and expanding networks across the world, such as Young Africa Leadership Initiative, Dreams Ambassadors addressing HIV/AIDS, intergenerational local councils working for peace, and many more. That makes it easier for all of us to learn from each other and truly partner with young change makers for building better communities and a better world together. I am looking forward to seeing the collective efforts of USAID staff, young people, and associated stakeholders supporting 1 million change makers to make development priorities in their communities and countries. That's it for today. But don't forget to sign up onto youthpower.org to use the Global Lead Toolkit and be part of an amazing partnership.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nuru. And now I have the pleasure of passing it over to Hillary Taft, USAID's Youth Technical Specialist, who will walk us through the functionality of our new Global Lead Toolkit. Hillary?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Excited to be able to share with you the Global Lead Toolkit in real life. So our team is going to drop the link into the chat so that you all can follow along with me. But wanted to go ahead and share with you the different pages of the toolkit and kind of walk you through so that you can familiarize yourself with all the resources and ways to connect that we have included here. So you'll see if you scroll down on the landing page of About the Global Lead Framework, you'll see the entire graphic design that Mike and Nuru both shared with you. So this is really exciting because you have access to this. You can look at this framework, you can share it with others on your team and really start to understand how it's moving from those outcomes that we're looking for at the different layers to the different intervention examples. And the really neat thing is that this framework is actually interactive. So you can click on the different intervention examples and it will take you to the specific pages on each that we're going to look at in just a moment. Next, we're going to talk about planning a new youth program. So the way the toolkit's designed is that it's helping you move through the stages of program design all the way through to communicating your story. So the first thing we're going to look at when we think about designing a new youth program is how are we going to incorporate youth voices? So if you click on the Integrate Youth Voices page on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see this page that has a lot of resources on it. So everything that's underlined is a different resource. So you'll click on those and it will take you to a new page where you can continue to explore, find different tools for engaging young people. The one that I wanted to share with you today is on the Youth Power website already, but you may not have found it if you weren't going through from the Global Lead Toolkit. So this is the Youth Engagement Measurement Guide, which is a really helpful tool for measuring young people's participation in our programs. So this is one of the ways you can click through from this page. You'll see it right here, the Youth Engagement Guide. You click through to that and it'll take you to this page. Next, we're going to look at the mapping your context and system. This is a really important priority for USAID to be able to map both where young people are, where they have influence, and how other systems are influencing young people. So on this page, I wanted to show you one of our tools from USAID, the Local Systems Framework here. If you click on this link, it'll take you to this document, which is actually being updated this year, which is exciting. We'll have an updated version of this framework for you in 2022. But there's lots of great principles and frameworks and measurement tools here as well for learning how to map youth local systems. Next, we're going to go to the Design Your Program page. So after you've talked with young people, you've mapped where they are in the community and what their priorities are, then going into designing a youth program. So here it has a graphic of the USAID program cycle. And then if you scroll down, you'll see different resources on how to define a problem, how to create a logic model and a theory of change. And there are also resources around positive youth development here. And then we have a new section that we're excited about that is designing programs intentionally for diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. This is an important new priority for USAID and Administrator Power as we think about being the agency not only for international development, but the agency for inclusive development. Next, we're going to think about measuring. So you've designed your program, but you need to be able to measure the outcomes that you're looking for. So this is the measurement framework page. If you scroll down, you'll see resources from the Department of State, different USAID resources as well, the PYD measurement toolkit, some things from some of our partners as well. So this is a really great way to find resources on measurement. I wanted to share with you the one on collaboration, learning, and adapting, which is USAID's MEL framework. We also have our youth indicators. So these are really important. So these are standard F youth indicators that are specific for measuring youth outputs and outcomes. So this is a great resource that you can access from this page as well. You can find them right here. Next, we're going to go to our communications plan page. So you've got your outcomes, you know that you've been reaching young people to accomplish whatever your goal is, right? Whether that's increased education or healthcare access or participation in community volunteerism, whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, now it's important to create the plan so you can tell your story. So I wanted to share here some of the tools that are included, such as social media tools, ways to engage young people with our Global Lead Virtual Engagement Starter Kit. So if you're not on Global Lead already, highly recommend that, and you can access a wide range of different starter kits. But here I wanted to share one of our examples of how to tell your story, which includes this great video from International Youth Day on August 12th last year. where we had young change makers from around the world compile videos to share their story. So video storytelling is a great way to get your message out there on social media and other platforms. We also have tools like the Higher Education Storytelling Toolkit, which is a new resource from USAID that I would highly recommend. All right, so we've planned our program, but it's also important to think about the different program models that are out there for youth engagement around Global Lead. So we have this exciting Adaptable Intervention Models page. So it's divided into a lot of different categories so that it's really easy to identify which program model is best for you. So we have the stage in the program cycle. So where are you in that USAID program cycle? Different age groups and the sector that you're interested in working in. So what you'll do is you'll click on this Explore All Models, which is a really great way to see all of the different types of intervention models that we have. I want to share just a few of them with you today. The first one that I want to share with you is this community service, project-based, or service learning model. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this page where you can see a summary of what it means to do service learning. You can find different resources from USAID and examples from our partners, as well as specific regional examples. So you'll find this on every one of the program model pages. This is how it's laid out. You'll find sample indicators that you can use related to youth. And then there's a video, so that if maybe video learning is easier for you to kind of understand a different concept or program model, or if you want to be able to share the video with a potential sponsor or partner, this is a great way to kind of share what it looks like in practice. One of the other models I wanted to share is the local learning exchange. So again, it's laid out exactly the same with program examples, regional examples, sample indicators, but local learning exchange is a really powerful way for young people to come together as peer educators in different regions, maybe with different ethnic or cultural backgrounds, and to learn from one another. So this is a really exciting model that we've seen be very effective in certain contexts. And then wanted to share another model of youth advisory councils. So this is something that USAID has been, advocating for a long time. Our colleagues at Youth Power and Youth Lead are experts in this space of setting up youth councils so that young people are able to have meaningful voices in program design and implementation. So you'll see different examples across regions, the different sample indicators, and then a video as well. So I definitely encourage you to explore all the different program models. Those are only 3 out of like over a dozen. So yeah, definitely check it out. The next thing I want to show you are our programming by sector. So maybe you're focused on a specific sector. So we want to make sure that you can find the tools that are most relevant for you. So if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see our list of different sectors that USAID and our partners work in. And the first one I want to show you, just a couple to show you. I've got the agriculture and food security one. So if you click on this page, you'll find a lot of resources here, statistics, policy documents, best practices, program design. So these are not just what we've pulled, from everything about agriculture ever. These are very specific curated documents that are focused on youth and that are focused on civic education, engagement, and leadership, specifically within agriculture. So if you go here, you'll find best practices from different programs like Feed the Future, FAO, USAID, of course, links to our AgriLinks page, different tools on program design specifically for youth and agriculture, and then different networks and communities of practice. So we'll talk about this more in a moment, but this is a really great way to get connected with others who are working in your same field or who are interested in the same topics as you. Also wanted to show you the education page. So let's see if I can click on this in real time. There we go, great. We've got different education policies and strategies from USAID, statistics as well to make the case for why education is important for young people, program design, different curricula and networks, as well as other examples. So we have great examples here from Vietnam, Honduras, Lebanon, DRC, Jordan. So really, really great resources here to help you think about what is effective in engaging youth in education. Lastly, I want to share our health page with you. See if it'll load. There we go. Again, same format: policies, stats, practices, program design, curricula, networks, and examples. Our dreams example, which you'll hear more about momentarily, Uganda, Vietnam, West Africa. This is a really great way to learn what's happening in different countries and regions related to youth and healthcare access, on adolescent sexual and reproductive health, thinking about the different soft skills that are needed to have positive health outcomes. So this is a really great way to explore different sectors. All right, last but not least, I want to make sure you know how to connect with others. You've been able to think about how to design a program, how to integrate youth voices, how to tell your story. Now it's about just connecting. So we want to make sure you know about the different networks that are available to you through Global Lead. So we have global youth-led networks, regional networks like YALI, Waisili, and Eden. Thematic, topic-specific networks, whether that's agriculture or digital, democracy, employment, whatever it is that you're passionate about, there's a list of networks here for you to explore what's best for you. And we have our communities of practice, which are led through our youth power colleagues. We have these different topics that you see here: gender, youth engagement, regional specific communities of practice like our MENA Youth COP. So these are all great resources for you, curated and designed especially for you to be able to access what it is that you need. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And then I want to take just a moment to introduce our upcoming panel interview with our Global Lead intern, Manuela, and two of our wonderful Global Lead leaders who are working in Africa in the health sector. So they're going to share with you a little bit about the different models of what it looks like to practice Global Lead in real life. Will we be adding to the toolkit as we go? Yes, this is a living document. This is a living web page, so we'll be adding new resources as they come along. That's a great question. But with that, I'm excited to introduce our panel interview of young leaders. And so if we can go ahead and start that, and then we'll wrap back up in just a moment.
Good morning, everyone. We're excited to have credible panelists today representing our Global Lead projects throughout Africa. With a mission to support a new generation of young leaders, Global Lead seeks to activate 1 million young change makers like the individuals that we have on our panel today. To this end, we have created the Global Lead Toolkit, which we will be launching today, a resource guide for youth-focused and youth-inclusive programming. Today, we will be hearing about young leaders who are representatives of USAID activities that highlight Global Lead's 26 intervention models. We are excited to get to do a deep dive on regional youth leadership in Africa. Today with us, we have Asoneli Kutu from South Africa. She is the founder of FemConnect, a startup that creates digital solutions for period poverty support, access to feminine hygiene products, and family planning services. She also served as the Youth Lead Ambassador for South Africa in 2020 and the Youth Lead International Ambassador Advisor to the 2021 Global Changemakers. We have finally Salki, who is 24. She is a Dreams Ambassador in Namibia. She provides information and services on topics related to sexual and reproductive health rights, but also engages on sensitive topics such as gender-based violence and drug abuse communal dialogues. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for sharing your perspectives. Today, we will be starting with Salki. Salki, I'd like to ask you about your experiences and what strategies or tactics you have seen that have worked well to create more civic participation and leadership opportunities for young people in development programs.
The tactics we have civic education, that includes my rights and responsibilities covered in the weekly safe spaces. Through covering these topics, I have observed a drastic change in attitude of young girls and young women. And with girls being more proactive in seeking counseling or help through the difficulties that they're going through, either in their communities or in their relationships, or especially gender-based violence, and then making more informed decisions on sexual reproductive health. This in turn make them educators and mentors in their communities toward other peers. Because before covering these topics, I could have told that they were unaware of their rights and responsibilities. And by being aware of them, they can educate, they can mentor other peers in the communities or in their relationship. And also by mobilizing, by reaching out girls in the community, discussing all the possible information, have also opened their minds. They can discuss their problems with their partners and educate other peers who didn't reach the program yet.
Thank you so much, Salki, for your perspective. Asanele, on to you. Are there program interventions that you think have been overused, even though they are not effective for young people? Or on the flip side, are there interventions that you think are often overlooked but have real potential?
All right, thanks, Manuela. So I wouldn't say they're mostly not effective, but what I found and what I've seen for a very long time in South Africa is that most youth-based programs have been schools-based initiatives. So they would usually take place within schools as an extramural or as a recreational activity or any other organization that would come into the school, engage with youth. And what we have in South Africa is we have a shortage of community-based centers because there's somehow not many organizations that have community-based youth centers within local communities. And that's why many people target schools. And that somehow became a little bit problematic when we started getting the hard lockdown in 2020, when people couldn't go to schools and we were not allowed to get out. So there was no accessibility to those kind of programs. And those kind of stopped for a year and a half or even 2 years for many. And some programs had to shut down because they couldn't engage with their youth and lack of funding and so forth. And what we saw in between that time and what we used as an area to get in and try to continue our conversations with youth is that we tried to go the digital route. So instead of going to schools, we then invited young people to come and join us on our platform and say, we've got FemConnect ambassadors, and they then become the voice on the ground to say, hey, you can join us. We're meeting at this time. Here's the Zoom link. And some of them joined our WhatsApp groups. So we started going digital in terms of our engagement with young people because we saw that we didn't want that kind of engagement to die off completely and then for them to focus on other stuff. They still needed safe spaces to engage and also places for them to develop. And in addition to that, what we saw is with the period poverty programs, we would usually donate sanitary pads at the schools and the teachers would distribute. But many young girls were then at home, once again, due to COVID, and they couldn't get access because schools were closed. And what we started to do is we created a platform online where girls could say, I need sanitary pads, I'm based in this area. Then we would then distribute based on finding donors through our online platform. So we tried to digitize as much as possible and tried to transition from physical engagement into online engagement. And what we found is that young people were very much receptive and they were open to it, and it was in the comfort of their own homes and it was comfortable. And that is something that we are slowly seeing that is growing. However, the problem with that is that not everybody has access to internet, not everybody has access to a smartphone. So it's still an area that could grow, and there is a little bit of challenges here and there, but it's an avenue that I see growing further and further because everybody is starting to move digital, and some community-based or schools-based programs are closing down right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Asanele, for your insight. And finally, we will move on to our very last question. If each of you could please respond with perhaps a sentence or two about what you think working with young partners and young people as partners in development should look like. What needs to change for this to happen? Let's start with Asanele. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
So what that looks like for me is inviting young people to the tables where decisions, strategies, and programs are formulated, and having them being part not just on the implementation side, but also on the formulation of the policies, the projects, the programs, the holistic, thing. So yeah, I think it's not just having a voice at the end and also just evaluating youth-based initiatives at the end, but also having them part of the initial process from start to finish. And that's what that's what having youth voices, it means to me as a person. Thanks.
Thank you, Asanele. Salki, do you have a thought or two about how you think we should utilize young people as partners in development, and what kind of change needs to happen for us to see this?
Yes, Manuela, I have something. Young people need to be involved in development programs when it comes to decision makings. And then they also need to have a representative sitting on the board and the team involved in this process. And then young people also need to have the right to speak up, and then their decision should be considered and on the issues that they have and how to go about it. And what we need to change is the obstacle or the problems that are hindering, like what is going on really, so that the voice of the young ones is not being considered or they are not being involved in the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Salki, to all of our panelists for attending today. We really appreciate you serving as representatives of these promising interventions, and we encourage everyone to check out our toolkit to learn more about how these interventions and how the models being used as part of them can help include young voices in development. Thank you all.
You're on mute, Hillary.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Wow. Thanks so much to Manuela and to our young leaders for sharing their experiences. Just a couple of the program model interventions that they talked about that you can find in the toolkit, I wanted to pull out for you all: civic education, peer mentoring, the importance of safe spaces in youth centers, digital literacy, as well as youth advisory councils and the importance of those in creating youth voice in our programming. So thank you so much to our young leaders and to Manuela for putting together that interview. Now I'm going to pass it over to Mike for our closing activity.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Manuela, and to our young changemakers and Hillary. This toolkit is all about finding your entry point. Are you designing something new? Are you looking to strengthen an existing set of interventions with young people? Or are you evaluating and trying to really measure and communicate what you've been learning? So that's what's so great about the online toolkit. You can find so many great examples in the form of videos and examples from programs and other resources. So that's why we really hope you can dive into it. So now it's your turn. The best way to learn is to actually get your hands dirty and utilize this toolkit to explore in it. And we're going to do a 10-minute exercise where we invite you to open up the toolkit and familiarize yourself with the layout and some of the resources. So Cole is going to be sharing with you in a moment how we're going to do this activity. And I got to say, as someone who's done training and professional development for 30 years, this is the really important point for all of you who've chosen to be on this webinar right now, because by exploring it yourselves right now, I think you'll find that this is a resource that you can really share with your teams moving forward. So over to you, Cole and Katie.
Thanks so much, Mike, and apologies for my background noise this morning. But hello again, and welcome to everyone that I didn't get to meet earlier today. So again, my name is Cole Simcoe. I'm happy to be here to help launch this toolkit with everyone today. And as Mike said, we're going to take some time right now to kind of interact and learn more about the toolkit through kind of a hands-on activity. So a couple of things before we start. So if you can direct your attention to the chat, we're going to actually ask everyone to open up the toolkit. So we're going to, I think Gael's going to go ahead and place the link to the toolkit in the chat, which should navigate you right to the home page of the toolkit. And what we're actually going to do is pose a series of 4 questions to you, kind of questions as a scavenger hunt to help you navigate through the toolkit and find some kind of important resources highlighting some of the program or the sectors of the toolkit that we want you guys to understand. So those will be centered around program design, implementation, communication, and networking. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here in a second. So give me 1 second. And what you'll see pop up is a Jamboard. There we go. With our questions on it. So we can go ahead and put the link to the Jamboard in the chat as well. And what we're going to ask you to do, I'm going to read out the questions for you, is you can either go into the toolkit and start looking for kind of the answers to these questions, navigate through the different sections, and you can either place your answer here on the Jamboard, or you can go ahead and place them in the chat and we can go ahead and add them to the Jamboard for you. So I'm going to go ahead and read out the questions or the examples that you're looking for really quickly for you. So in no particular order do you have to answer these, but the first one is centered around design. So we're asking for you to find an example of designing programs intentionally for diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. And if you were with us earlier, Hillary highlighted this as one of the resources as she was walking through the toolkit. So that's one aspect that we'd like you to go ahead and look for. Another one is about implementation. So we're asking you to find an intervention model for youth councils and/or youth debate programs within the toolkit. And then we have communicate. So find a resource where you can develop and share a story about youth engagement. And the fourth and final one on here is find a youth-led organization working of a topic of interest to you or your organization. So it's pretty open-ended on that one. But what we're going to go ahead and do is give you guys a couple of minutes to go through the toolkit. Like I said, you don't have to do these in any particular order, but search through the toolkit, kind of get a hands-on some time with it, dig through and try to find some of the answers or examples to the questions posed. So I'll give a couple of minutes for you guys, and you can either, like I said, put them in the chat, or you can put them directly on the Jamboard. And what we'll go through after that and kind of look at some of these examples here. There is a sticky note feature. That's the easiest way. I'm going to pull it up on my screen. It's this little one that says sticky note here. And I'm going to clear that out. If you click on the sticky note, you can go ahead and type whatever you would like here and put it on the Jamboard. So I'm going to let you guys work on this for a couple of minutes, and then Katie and I will come back and walk through some of the answers.
Cole, would it be okay if I shared one more way for folks to navigate different programs in the toolkit?
Please, yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna try sharing my screen really quickly. See if I can do this. All right, so if you go to the intervention model page where it says explore models, and then click on the find a model that works for you, it'll open up this searchable, filterable page. So this is a really great resource if you're wanting to look for a specific type of program model. You can look by the different program cycle phases. You can look by the sectors, or by the age group. So this might be helpful for some of the folks who are maybe searching for a certain type of sector or model. So just wanted to share that with folks as well. Thanks, Cole.
No, thank you, Hillary. That was super useful.
So we've got about 22 people in the Jamboard. If you can, click on that link that Cole and Gael posted so that all of you can actually be in the Jamboard. That'll make it easier to post one of those notes. Or if you can't get into the Jamboard, you're welcome to just drop it in the chat.
Thanks, Mike. And it looks like we have some good answers coming in here already on the design question. And some for networking. So we'll give a couple more minutes for you guys to search through. By no means do you have to answer all 4 of these questions. They're just here for you to explore different areas of the toolkit. So.
Again, we really encourage you to take this opportunity to just try and find some of the things, because you could also provide us feedback on how we make it even better as a toolkit to help you find things. But I think if you explore it, you're going to find that this is an incredible resource to all of us, whether you're a young leader, you're a USAID staff member, or you're an implementing partner designing a new activity. We just want you to kind of explore and practice this a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information included in the toolkit. So there's really no right or wrong answer. I think it's more programmatically what applies to you and what is helpful to you and the work that you are doing. But as we get some of these answers in, I think I'm going to invite Katie on to kind of walk through some examples that she found to be interesting in the activity and kind of how she found those in the toolkit.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cole. I'm Katie Pons. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be working on this Global Lead Toolkit. I'm really excited about all the resources and packed in this toolkit. So as Cole said, I'm going to walk through some of the places. And Christina, thank you so much for your question in the chat. We definitely know that there's a ton of content in here. So I want to walk through how to find some of this content. So for that first question that you raised on the design question, I would orient you to look at the Plan a New Program tab. When you're thinking about design, you're planning your program. So if you start there and then you hit Design Your Program, on this page, you will see, wrong tab, Design Your Program. You will see a lot of great resources, as Hillary mentioned before, mapping out your context and input for young people. And if you scroll down, there's a portion dedicated to designing programs intentionally for diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. So this is a bucket of resources that you will see here. I saw some of these populating on the Jamboard, like YouthRex's guide on putting intersectionality into practice, as well as guides on inclusion and accessibility. So a lot of really great content here. One of the other things that I love about this toolkit is that there's a lot of different ways to access this rich information. So one other area I will highlight about this topic is it also, if you go to programming by sector, there's a tab on gender and inclusion. And so in this section, you will also find additional resources on program examples around gender and inclusion. So really great question. Thank you for flagging that, Christina, in the chat. One other example I wanted to highlight, and I think is really interesting, is around this implement prompt, finding an intervention model for youth councils and or youth debate programs. So this might come up if you know that you want to include one of those intervention models in your programming. You can go to explore models, and as Hillary highlighted before, there's a couple different ways to do this. So you can look at explore all models, and this will bring you to a list of the global lead intervention models where you can find, if you say, you want to do debate, you can find debate here specifically. And then on that debate page, you will find so many resources about how to incorporate debate as an intervention model in your programming. So you have the video here, as well as resources, program examples, as well, in addition to the sample indicators that you can use for your programming. But as Hillary just showed, maybe you're not sure which type of intervention model you want to use in your programming. So you want to explore the different options. So that is where you can go to this Find a Model That Works for You page and get to this filterable database. Asanele pointed out before that we want to include young change makers in every aspect. It's not just the implementation of programs. And so that's why we have this filterable by program cycle phase. So for example, if you want to include young change makers in monitoring, evaluation, and learning, you can filter for that, as well as maybe you want to filter for a specific sector that you're involved in. So using these filters can really allow you to adapt the toolkit and find the information. It's a lot of information. And so we encourage you to take the time to look through it and use the different filters and tabs in order to find the information that's pertinent to you.
Thanks so much, Katie. And yeah, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of amazingly great, wonderfully curated information as well. So I want to go ahead and take a moment. You can continue working on the Jamboard, but I want to take a moment and invite Mike back. I think we have some questions in the Q&A that we can go ahead and start with.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Cole. We've been collecting some of the comments, and we want to provide you a chance to ask any additional questions or comments right now. So do me a favor, take 30 seconds, and I want you to think through, and all questions and comments are good. But I want you to put in the chat one of two things. The one big question I still have is what? Or one suggestion based on what I've seen today, or one comment I have, are you excited? Are you overwhelmed? Are you whatever? And so please share with us one question or comment into the chat right now. That would be super helpful. And while we do that, let's see what questions are popping up right now. So let's see. Take a minute and just drop in any questions that you have. And it could be a question or a comment. Yep, go ahead.
I did see one that we had posted earlier about the tools being applied across sectors and if they are part of now the PYD training. So if you kind of want to talk about how this fits in, I think, to the PYD framework a little bit more, and I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. So as you saw in the framework, and that's right on the front part of the toolkit, we depart from that central concept of positive youth development as our model for in our approach to effective youth program. That's got 30 years of experience and research in multiple different environments around the world. But we've added to that this concept of how do we expand out toward collective action and systems change? And how do we do that by combining different interventions of effective youth engagement? And this kind of ties into also the question in the chat, which is acknowledging that tokenism is still such a significant challenge in youth programming. Has the toolkit provided resources on how we can alter power structures that systematically prevent youth from being considered? And the answer is yes. Katie, I don't know if you could pull up one of the pages around that, but as you go down through the different interventions, you'll see a whole array of interventions that talk to some of these issues of, decision-making by young people and giving them different opportunities based on the sector, based on kind of the level or ages and stages that they're at. And so that is a really important area as we think about, like, especially in the youth, peace, and security space. What does it look like to have young voices at the table around peace building or peace negotiations, or building out national plans of action on youth, peace, and security? So yeah, that's definitely a great question for us to look at. Mccabe, thanks for your comment. Excited about the new complex resource, but need to go through it all. There's a lot to digest. On that issue of a lot to digest, here's our ask of you. Our ask is that you go to your calendars, wherever you keep it, on your Google Calendar, wherever it is, but find a way that in the coming few days, you put 30 minutes onto your calendar, a time slot, and explore this toolkit and think about how it can benefit your organization, your project, your mission, and how you could use it to advance that common commitment to engaging the collective impact of young people. If you put that on and actually spend 30 minutes looking at it and then share it out with your, with your team, I think you're going to find that this is an incredibly powerful resource for each of you. And that's what our hope is that you can really dig into it, because it's one thing to create a synthesized set of great resources. It's another thing to get people to actually use it. So Constance has the question, Toolkit has a lot of information, but the Jamboard makes it easy to use it, as it gives clear guidance as to develop and implement. I believe that over time, once one gets familiar, it will be ready to run. Yeah, no, again, the Jamboard is a good exercise to use, and you can actually use that with your teams at your organization. But it's also, as Katie pointed out, we've built in a number of points of functionality that make it really easy for you to parse based on the type of project you're doing, the type of intervention you're looking at, where you are in what we call the program cycle. Are you designing? Are you implementing? Are you building out your monitoring and learning? So there's a lot of great points on that. All right, I'd love to see, in our final 4 minutes, just a few more questions that you have about the Global Lead Toolkit, or thoughts about, like, how do we take this to the next level? Because again, if you build an incredible online toolkit, but people aren't engaging on it, then we've lost this opportunity to really work together in this partnership with young people with great resources. So what are your ideas on how do we get this out more broadly? And Veronica, thank you for your point on, need time to go through it, but excited to see the gender and inclusion aspects. And you'll see, if you went into that toolkit, there is that whole section that Hillary pointed out on how do we ensure that young people's voices are built in throughout this whole cycle. So we've built in all sorts of tools, from inclusive development analysis and looking at barriers, frameworks, to help you, create spaces for young people in the design, in the implementation, and all throughout it. So any final thoughts that people would like to post, or questions that you still have? If we can use this toolkit directly with youth, absolutely. The toolkit, it's always hard to design something that works for lots of audiences, but that was our goal when we started designing it. Jesse and the team that worked on that was really about creating something that could be useful, because it has like monitoring and evaluation indicators and illustrative interventions for like USAID staff as we design. It's got great models from implementing partners around the world, including youth-led organizations. And then it has all sorts of resources that can help young change makers. So I think we've really tried to design it so that it can meet each of those 3 areas. And to hear, great to see you here from Ethiopia. Thank you for your interest and for your contribution. Some of the really innovative things that the Ethiopia team is doing on this. So And Lydia, just looking at your comment, engaging researchers on designing youth initiatives. Hillary, can I ask you to address that a little bit and how this also ties into some of our Youth Excel resources on it?
Definitely. So this toolkit is really just the beginning. We'll have another resource coming out on digital literacy and leadership through our Youth Excel activity. But even now, you can go into the toolkit, and there's a section on media and digital. But this is an area where young researchers who are working on different topics can go in and look at the different sectoral topics, if that's the way to go, or going into that program design phase and looking more at like the measurement piece of things, or even some of the communicate resources could be really helpful for young researchers. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any specific questions on that. But I mean, I think we all would agree that it's really important for young people to be collecting the evidence and the data on what's working in their communities as they're implementing these projects, so that then they can tell their stories and advocate for the issues that are most important to them. Thanks,
Awesome,
Mike.
thanks. And then I want to respond to Tef's comment about, can we have this in other languages? So as many of you know, if you go to the top right corner of the Youth Power site, or of the Youth Lead site, which is our companion site for connecting and networking young change makers, you can change it into any of those languages. So it's got, over 50 languages that you can flip this into. Now, some of the sections of this are what we call hard-coded. Those will only show up in English, but you can get quite a bit of the content to convert using that Google Translate function in the upper right corner. We do have it as a goal that we'd eventually like to put all aspects of the toolkit into Spanish and French and Arabic. We'd like to move that direction, and we recognize that that is key if we really are talking inclusive development, is to address language barriers. And the one way we've tried to do it is to put the auto translator up in the upper right corner. All right, we are at time, but I have to say a tremendous thanks to the team at YP2LE who have been helping with the development of this, to Jesse Ellisberg, who was the force behind pulling this toolkit together, to Hillary, to our incredible interns, including Manuela and Robert, Hanya, and others, and Daria, to Katie and Cole, who put this event together. Again, my ask of you, just in the next 1 to 2 weeks, put 30 minutes on your calendar to explore the toolkit with you and some of your team members, to show what's in it and how you could really utilize this as you're advancing your current project designs or new activities. I think you'll see that it will make a big impact on what we're trying to do together, of really supporting 1 million young change makers to meet those sustainable development goals over the next 8 years. So thanks so much for everyone for joining us. We look forward to being in touch. You can always reach out to us via our email, which we'll drop in here again, if you'd like to have a presentation to your mission or to your organization or to your youth network. Thank you again to everyone.